And welcome back to Nite Line. I hope you've enjoyed that first hour with Dr. Wilton and with the Street family. By the way, they're going to be back with us in this hour, and so please don't go anywhere. We've got a lot of folks who've been calling in tonight, as you well know, and we've got this one salvation report, several praise reports. We have those prayer partners. They're standing by. They're waiting for your telephone call, and so please, they didn't come here just to eat M&Ms and talk amongst themselves. They're here for you to give them a call. So go to your telephone right here at the bottom of the screen. You'll see our local number. You'll see our 800 number. So pick up that phone. They want to pray with you. You may have not even talked to anyone lately. Maybe you're lonely tonight. I don't know. Maybe you're at the correction facilities around our local area. We don't know that either. But one thing we know, there is a man and his name is Jesus. And he died for you. He loves you so very, very much. And there's nothing that you've ever done that he can't forgive. So please, let me encourage you. Go to those telephones and share with a prayer partner. Our scripture comes to us. Well, I would say that if you don't know this, shame on you, because it's John 3:16. Now, if you're not saved, you don't know it, okay? But you should know it. Listen, you can say it with me. There it is on the screen. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life, all right? John 3:16, and that says it all. By the way, our guest tonight on this second hour is Miss Jess Archer. She's coming to us all the way from Austin, Texas, fairly close to in between the Brazos and the Pedernales rivers over there in Austin, Texas. She is a mom. She's a writer. Her husband is B. Sterling Archer. He's a writer and songwriter, well known in that central Texas area. And I always love talking to Texans because I'm a Baylor graduate, Sikkim Bears, there in Waco. And Austin's about 103 miles from Waco, Texas, but it's a beautiful part of the country. Jess Archer is a writer. We're going to be talking about her book, the author of Finding Home with the Beatles. Now listen, with the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Billy Graham. I'm telling you, we all love music. Don't go anywhere. She's going to share with us. But right now, we're going to hear from the Street family. I'm still standing. All right, Street.
When Satan comes against me, I call Jesus' name. Oh, my faith has been tried, but my God remains the same. Even down in the valley, I'm never left alone. With my Savior, Lord and King, I'm still standing
was said and done, this was Job's reply. I'm still standing, even through the trials I've known. There's sickness, pain, but oh, I'm still standing. Through the storms that come my way, I'll see a brighter day. And by God's grace, I'm still standing. I'm still standing. I'm still standing.
Thank you, Street Family. Boy, aren't they a blessing. They're going to be back in just a few minutes, and don't turn the dial. Listen, we've got so many requests that have come in tonight. Listen, prayer partners are waiting for your call. Go on to that telephone. You see the numbers. Pick it up, dial them, and just share your heart with them, all right? Right now, I want you to join me in welcoming to our program Miss Jess Archer from Austin, Texas. Miss Jess Archer, we are so glad to have you with us. Now, I know that you have two kids, a 2-year-old and 5-year-old, and are they typical kids, 2 and 5?
Oh yeah, they're pretty typical. Lots of energy. I managed to get them. Well, the 2-year-old's down taking a nap right now, and the 5-year-old's in his room resting. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yes, that's okay. And if they join you, well, we'll just send them a big, big kiss. You are an author, and your book, it is indeed the author of Finding Home. I love this. Finding Home with the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Billy Graham. I love that. It's a loaded question. What makes this book so unique?
It's a great question. And, well, first of all, it's a long title, short book. Okay. So it's very readable. It's most people tell me they sit and they read this book within 2 days. Mm-hmm. So part of why I wanted to write it is because I am one of a very small handful of people who got the chance to travel with the Billy Graham Association.
Wow. Yes.
You know, Billy Graham's children did not travel with him when he toured around the world doing his crusades.
Right.
But he did have a group of team members, his team members, who arranged his crusades, and those team members and their children traveled.
Right.
So I was nomadic in that my family and we moved every single year around the world in the service of Billy Graham.
Right.
So that's part of what makes my book unique, is that none of those people who traveled with Billy Graham have written books about it, except for me.
And so in doing this, I mean, you are, how old were you in the travels when y'all were traveling? How old were you then?
The very first move my parents did with Billy Graham was to Calgary, Alberta in 1981, and I was 4.
Okay.
And then they stopped moving with Billy Graham when I was 15.
Okay.
So you can definitely say that my entire childhood was moving on the road with Billy Graham.
Where did you live in various places?
Can I give you the list? Do you want the list?
Well, the most exciting places that you lived.
I'll tell you some of the most exciting places. We lived in Anchorage, Alaska.
Wow.
We lived in Paris, France.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to highlight that we moved from Paris, France to Fargo, North Dakota.
Ooh.
Quite a transition.
That would be like going from Austin to Fargo. I mean, great day in the morning it would.
Maybe even more so. I know. Yeah. So we lived in Paris and then we moved to Fargo. And we also lived a few places in Canada. We lived in Montreal. We lived in Calgary. I also lived in Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay. All right. And did you pick up any French while you were there?
Definitely.
That's great.
I lived in France when I was 9, and that's a perfect age to live there and learn the language. And then when we moved back to the United States, my siblings and I took French when it was available in school, and then I took French again all through high school. So France French is in there. It just, I haven't used it recently.
Right. But it's good to be bilingual, you know.
Yes.
It really, really is. All right. So it's a unique book. And when I see this, why in the world? Now, I know why I could tell you, but why should our viewers, why should they want to read your book?
Again, read my book because I describe moving around the world in the service of Billy Graham and his ministry in a positive light. My book is celebratory.
Yeah.
I can't state this enough. It was a privilege to have been serving Billy Graham and his ministry. But as a child, moving every year, I did suffer from anxiety. All the transitions, all the moves, all the starting over in different neighborhoods and schools. Right. So my book is very relatable because I describe childhood anxiety, and a lot of kids experience that. A lot of kids have to move homes all the time. Right. So it's on one hand, it's universal. People can relate to that anxiety experience, and then on the other hand, it's a unique story. It's interesting. Not like I said, I'm the only person who's written a book about moving with the Billy Graham Association. So it's unique.
And in your writing, though, what I find interesting is you've pulled in the Beatles and Bob Dylan. Where does that fit into this equation of the title of your book when it's giving, talking about the Graham ministry? I think it's fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going for with the title. I wanted to capture people's attention and for them to say, what in the world do these three forces have in common? Right. So when my father became a Christian, in the late 60s, his favorite music was the Beatles and Bob Dylan. Right. And he became a Christian, and he kind of, when he became a Christian and Christ entered his life, a lot of things about his life changed. His language changed. He had been a war protester, Vietnam War protester. A lot of that anger subsided, and but he kept with him some of his favorite things, and he kept with him his favorite music of the Beatles and Bob Dylan. Right. So when we were kids traveling from city to city with Billy Graham, my father liked to play the music of the Beatles or Bob Dylan. So in my childlike mind, the Beatles and Bob Dylan had everything to do with our journeys toward Billy Graham's crusades.
I can't help but think, I'm thinking about your moving around and working with crusades, and I'm hearing a Beatles song, "The Long and Winding Road." Boom.
Yeah.
I mean, because you had to be coming. I can't imagine.
Constant transitions, constant upheaval in our routine. Yeah. And for that, I give my parents a lot of applause because they managed to move a family with 4 children.
Wow.
Almost every 9 months.
My gracious.
So they had it down to a science how to travel your family all around. But you know what? They didn't skimp on experience, because whenever we lived in a city, they'd let us get pets in that city, and we hung up pictures on the walls, and we decorated. I mean, they didn't just live out of cardboard boxes, packing boxes. They really invested in a place wherever we lived.
Did you live in a home, or it wasn't a hotel setting? It was a home.
No, we lived in a home. We rented a house every single year.
That's great. When you said you were in an Anchorage, that's kind of cold up there, isn't it?
I know. I was 6 years old when we lived in Anchorage. So, the memories are maybe a little sparse, but I do remember just mountains of snow, just mountains of it. Like, being completely overshadowed by big mountains of snow in our yard.
Yeah. Could you imagine that in Austin, Texas?
Oh, no. I know. My 5-year-old's always asking, Mom, when am I going to get to see snow?
Well, maybe it'll come out. We had one big snow the 5 years we lived in Waco, as I recall. But anyway, I just think that when people see this title, Finding Home with the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Billy Graham, folks, you've got to pick it up. I mean, you really have. There it is. You see her website. You go to that website or her Gmail account and say, hey, I want a copy of your book. And she'll talk to you, and she'll get back to you and make sure you get that book. And you know what I'm going to ask you to do? I've been doing this now, I don't know, 13, 14 years, okay, as guest hosting. And I've been doing this And I always ask my guests if they have a DVD, CD, or a book, if they would autograph me a copy of the book. Would you do that and mail it here to me, and I'll bear the expenses?
Pastor Benny. It'll come to you as soon as I can get it. Yes.
If you'll send it right here to the station in Greenville, I always get my autographed copies. Those of you here at the and all our viewers know it. And I probably have a couple of hundred books in my library of people that I've interviewed who are authors, and I'm thrilled with that. I really am, and I'm honored anytime I can get a book. So, are there plans to write another book?
Yes. Before I do that, do you mind if I go get my computer cord?
No, well, you know what? With your computer cord, I tell you what, I want you to go get that computer cord in just about 3 or 4 minutes. I want you to sit tight, because I want to ask you this. There's so many questions I want to ask, but before you get that cord, what is the major theme in the book? What would you say is the major theme?
Major theme is finding home with Christ. Finding Christ as the home in your life here, and then of course knowing Christ for the home hereafter. The thing I longed for most as a child was a sense of rootedness, a place that I never had to leave.
Right.
But I didn't get that. I never did get that as a child. I never got a place on earth that I never had to leave.
Right.
I didn't get that home that I thought meant home, but in my book, I describe the journey of discovering that Christ can come and set up his home inside me.
Amen. Isn't that wonderful? You know, I relate to that because as a pastor, you know, I've had to, maybe I'd served 5 or 6 years here or 8 years here or whatever, and you're constantly breaking camp and moving to your next camping spot. Yeah. I am a South Carolinian, for example, but yet my children claim Alabama as their home.
Isn't that interesting?
And you know, and it's just because of what you just said. You're moving around, and but now has that made you a little more committed, and maybe that's an unfair word, to stay in Austin as long as possible?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. I have to tell you, I love Austin, but I do get what they call itchy feet. You know, like I feel the need, like I've got to move. Like I've said to my husband, now, are we planning to be here for a really long time, because that kind of makes me nervous. Right. And he's like, really? And I said, yeah, I just don't really know what to do with that idea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on the one hand, I'm so thankful that when I drive around neighborhoods in Austin, my children know where we are.
Right.
I never had that experience as a child.
Bless your heart.
I never knew where I was, you know. So I love that. I love that when we're headed in one direction, my son will turn to me and say, Mom, are we going to the grocery store? You know, he knows where we are.
Yeah.
I'd like to continue that, but I'd also like my children to experience culture like I did.
Right.
To maybe move around the world and experience other cultures.
Well, you know, when our children are cultured, they can adapt and they can talk with anyone, be with anyone. That is so important. Now, I want you to hold tight, because I'll tell you what, I want you to go ahead and get that computer cord.
I know, I don't want
and I'm going to talk and cause the streets are coming. So you go ahead. Would you do that? And you come right back, though.
Okay.
Right now, the streets are going to sing for us Footprints. Let's welcome the Street family again.
I walked with my Savior by the shore. There were 2 sets of footprints in the sands of time. One was mine, and one was the Lord's. As we walked, my whole life unfolded there in front of me. There were scenes from my childhood until now. single path the footprints led through, troubles and trials, like we lost the house and Mama passed on. And I just couldn't understand why he'd forsaken me, why I was left to walk through the hard times alone. And I asked Savior, why did you leave me in my time of need? But he said,
You have never been alone. The footprints you see in the sand are mine, my child. For I picked you up and I carried you along.
and he said, the footprints that you see in the sand are mine, my child. For I picked you up and I carried you along.
I don't know about you. I hope you enjoy this music as much as I do. I'm just going to tell you, when you're in a place like this and you have guests like we do, like Jess Archer, and you have the street singing, a studio becomes a sanctuary. It really, really does. Thank you for so many of you going to those phones. Keep going. Prayer partners are standing by, and they want to hear from you. Our guest tonight is Miss Jess Archer, all the way from Austin, Texas. Isn't that fascinating how she can be there? We are here, and she wrote a book entitled Finding Home with the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Billy Graham, and you need to get that book. You need to buy that book. I'm just telling you, there it is, and you just go ahead and write her. We didn't want to give her phone number out because I always encourage people to call after midnight. The lines are never busy after midnight. So she said, no, let's just have you write. Isn't that right? Just to write your Gmail account. And that way we won't get you out of bed or anything like that. This dear lady has written this book. We were talking, Jess, we were talking about the fact that y'all moved almost yearly, for you almost 11, 12 years. And out of that, you've been in Austin. May I ask how long you've been there?
Sure, we're going on 13 years in Austin.
Wow. So
hard to believe.
And so your kids are Texans, and
They're
they know all about the Yellow Rose, don't they?
They do. They've seen the Alamo. My in-laws live in El Paso, so they've traveled all the way out west where there's nothing. In between one city and the next. You better fill up your car with gas, or Stockton, because you won't make it.
I mean, that is a long piece to go. If those of you listening, if you've ever been Austin to El Paso, I'm telling you that's a hike. I mean,
10 hours.
It is. It is. And so, but out of all of that, you lived around, and I'm thinking about the rich culture and experiences you had. Is there, as you think back, is there one particular, there may be several, but one experience that stands out in your heart and your mind, things that you remember for whatever age of whatever place you were in? Is there one certain memory that just kind of jumps out if someone says, what do you remember? Is there a memory somewhere? If so, tell us where it was and what it was.
Yeah. Oh, I have memories, of course, from every place in which I lived, but I like to think about how when we moved to Philadelphia, I was 14. That was the last move my parents made with the Billy Graham Association. And I always think about this when it comes to this theme of finding home. When we moved to Philadelphia, I, of course, didn't know the street names anywhere in our neighborhoods. I didn't know really where I was living at all. And one night after school, a friend's mom offered to take me home after I had stayed after to watch a football game. And the mom said, Jess, where do you live? And I couldn't even tell her. I didn't even know how to tell her how to get back to my rental home.
Whoa. Whoa.
And so when I think about the theme of home, that always comes to mind. I was that lost child, really, in every way, except that I knew Christ in my heart. So
Right.
geographically, I was always lost.
Right.
But I did come to have a centeredness in Christ and a real, I could say, you could almost say true north.
Right. Right.
Relationship with Christ. So I think about that story a lot, how confused I was when I got in that mom's car and she said, which way do I go? And I just gambled.
Isn't that something?
I said, try that way. And eventually we made it back to my house, but I'm sure it was angels.
Absolutely. I got to ask you this now. Moving around like that, preacher kids, when they move around, sometimes get a little rambunctious or rebellious.
Yeah.
Did you have any of those streaks?
Oh, yeah.
Did you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
There was a very real battle for me of knowing that I was supposed to behave very well in school because my father worked for Billy Graham.
Right.
But also being the new kid in town constantly. And so wanting to be able to prove myself or make friends. And
Right.
My father's job didn't exactly lend itself to making friends too easily.
Right.
I got a lot of looks when I said my dad worked for a preacher,
Right. Right.
Because I went to public schools and not certainly my friends didn't know who Billy Graham was. When they took me home to their house for dinner, their grandmothers always knew.
Sure.
But I rebelled a little bit in that sense of trying to just elbow my own way, trying to make a way for myself. Eventually, I settled down, but my siblings, I'd say we all kind of went through that
Right.
anger at
Sure.
my father's job
Sure.
that a lot of preachers' kids experience.
You used a term at the beginning of our interview tonight of being nomadic. Is that how you saw yourself, maybe as a nomad? Would that be fair?
Definitely. As a child, we barely had settled into a place when it was time to leave.
Yeah.
And that brought with it a host of emotions.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I just the having to say goodbye to friends, a new house, a new neighborhood, new school and teachers, new church.
Yeah.
It was difficult. But you know what? It gave me material to write a book about.
Yes. Yeah. And so out of that, did you find once, or are you even finding today that, a lot of time, using my children, for example, they were, as we moved around, they were always very reticent to get close. They had friends, but to get close to people because they got their hearts broken when we said, Daddy said, we're going to be moving.
Yes,
and,
that's exactly what happens.
Yep. And every time we moved, I'd go and take my son to McDonald's and my daughter to someplace else, and we would sit, and I'm going to say, well, I want to tell you something that's really exciting. And, it took a while for that excitement. I might have been excited, but boy, they sure won't, they were not.
I know.
And so maybe for your kids, you and your husband, or maybe making, even with an unspoken commitment, to stay right there in the Texas area, maybe?
Yeah, we've wanted to stay in Austin, but recently I wrote an article for Christianity Today about the topic of helping our children as they transition, helping to see the warning signs of intense anxiety. Because I experienced very intense anxiety, more than the normal degree of anxiety that kids go through.
Sure.
So I wrote an article describing some of those warning signs and just ways parents can really come alongside their kids and help shepherd them through those major life transitions.
Right.
To help ease their anxiety.
Because I'm thinking, here you are 14, and I'm sure that you had a lot of friends. Were you into cheerleading or sports or anything like that?
Sports, I did, softball and basketball.
Right.
I did theater.
Okay, all right. And so every time you moved, you had to make your name known to the sports team or to the theater or whomever. And you must have gotten at least real good at that.
Oh, yeah, that's another funny story, Pastor Benny. When I
Yes.
moved from Montreal to Glasgow, Scotland,
Wow.
in Montreal, obviously hockey is everything,
Yes.
but they mean ice hockey there. And then I moved to Scotland, and one of the coaches asked me in very, the Scottish accent's very difficult to understand.
Yes.
She asked me if I played hockey, and I said, sure, a little bit. And she said, great, come on out to the field on Saturday. So my dad took me to the field, and I got there, and she handed me a field hockey stick.
Oh, wow.
And I had no idea what I was doing. And I scored on our teams.
Oh, my.
And that was the last time the coach asked me to play field hockey.
But
So, things get lost in translation when you move from one country to the next.
They did.
But I did. I tried to. I learned how to prove myself a little bit.
Right. Here's a question. If I know that your husband is very well known in that Central Texas area as a songwriter and singer, and but if you and your husband, your two kids, if you had the opportunity, you lived in many places, and you had the opportunity to pick up yourself, your husband, your two kids, and go back and know that you could plant your feet there, of all the places you live, where would it be? Where would it be?
That's such a good question. Probably Paris, France.
Okay.
I mean, it's Paris. I'd go back just for the food, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the cultural center of the world, and people need Christ there deeply. And I would love to live there and give my kids the chance to experience that the French culture and to learn the language. What a gift to give them that. I'd probably go back to Paris.
Okay, and so when you were there, you do have fond memories of living that Parisian lifestyle, so to speak.
Yes.
That's good. I mean, that's fascinating. In traveling, you saw so many things. Are you amazed at what's transitioning or happening in America today?
In what sense? Politically?
Let's take the whole ball of wax. Let's say societal. What is going on in society? The norms that we obviously have been divorcing and the acceptance of anything and everything. I'm not trying to bash anybody or any people. Have you been concerned? And having traveled, and even though you were young, I mean, there were things that you caught, values that you caught. Seeing what we've got in America today, are you amazed at what's going on?
Yeah, I would say that I can definitely say there's a major difference in the sense of safety for our children.
Yes.
When I was a child and we lived all over the United States, we would move to a city and my parents would get our bikes off the moving truck and they would say, go ahead, go explore the neighborhood. And that was a perfectly acceptable thing to say.
Right.
To your children. And they said, don't go past a couple blocks, but they didn't have any problem with us exploring the neighborhood, riding our bikes around, riding to school, walking to school. And that is not even, I don't know anyone who lets their children ride bikes around the neighborhood that they don't know, or even a neighborhood they do know.
Wow.
There's a big shift in how we perceive the safety of our children and possibly the safety of our children.
Right.
Big difference.
And you are well traveled and well versed. Did you, I'm changing gears, did you ever meet Dr. Graham?
Oh, yeah.
And
oh, definitely. I tell a story. I won't tell it on the air, but I do tell a story in my book about when he signed my Bible for me. So you'll have to read the book it's a funny story.
Yes.
And obviously I've met him a few other times, but my father worked pretty hard at not making our family into celebrities.
Understand.
We weren't, and Mr. Graham didn't see himself that way either. So my father was very careful not to have us try and mix with the Grahams.
Right.
It wasn't appropriate. So my father was very close with Billy Graham, especially toward the end of Mr. Graham's public ministry. My father was very instrumental, and he was really more of a source of encouragement to Mr. Graham in Mr. Graham's last years of ministry.
Yes.
So I met Mr. Graham and saw him on many occasions. he knew our names, and he would wave to us when we'd be backstage, and he'd be talking with different dignitaries who wanted to meet with him. He would wave to us.
Right, right.
So, and I tell people, if my conscience has a voice, it's the voice of Billy Graham.
Well, that's good. I mean,
I heard him speak every year of my childhood.
Yeah.
His voice is just locked in my mind.
Yeah.
Memory.
And, you know, he's just about 80 miles up the road from us.
Yes.
In Black Mountain. And
I love it home. Mm-hmm.
yes, and earlier we had his pastor, Billy Graham's pastor with us, Dr. Wilton. And, you know, it is. And he is a loved man, and we continue to pray for him. He's getting up in his late 90s, and we keep praying for him, his son. Do y'all have any relationship with the Franklin Graham Ministries?
Not directly, no.
Okay.
I respect Samaritan's Purse. It's a wonderful ministry.
Right.
But we don't have any direct relationship with his ministries today, no.
Right, okay. Well, you're a fascinating guest, and I want to, don't you go anywhere, all right? Because Miss Archer is going to be back with us in just one more segment, and this is just fascinating. I hope you are as intrigued as I am. Anybody that would write a book entitled Finding Home with the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Billy Graham. Don't go anywhere. The Streets are going to sing for us right now, Trophy of Grace. All right, folks, lead us.
If you had known me then the way I was before, then you'd understand why I can't hold back the tears. Now my life's a testimony of His mercy, love, and grace. And one day I will thank Him face to face. I stand before you knowing that it's only by His grace that I am just what I am today. I'm a trophy of grace, a display of His love. I'm part of the results from the old rugged cross that was stained with His precious blood. Though I'll never understand why He died in my place, but just look at me today, because I can say I'm a trophy of grace. And though there is no way I can repay His love, and the mercy He's shown is more than life to me, there is nothing I can do or say that would be enough to pay the debt of sin He paid for me. I stand before you knowing that it's only by His grace that I am just what I am today. I'm a trophy of grace, a display of His love. I'm part of the results from the old rugged cross that was stained with His precious blood. Though I'll never understand why He died in my place, just look at me today, because I can say I'm a trophy of grace. Oh, a trophy of grace.
I hope you enjoyed that. Now, come on. The streets are great, and thank you, folks. You've blessed our hearts tonight, and we want to thank you. I just thank you for every word, the gospel that you put into the music. Again, you still have time to go to those phones. We have our prayer partners, counselors are standing by, and they want to hear from you. Okay, so please go right ahead. 800 number or the local number. We'll answer either way. Been talking tonight with Miss Jess Archer. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's an author, and I've told you the book, Finding Home with the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Billy Graham. We've been talking about her book, and we'll continue doing that in just a moment. Jess, we've been talking about your experiences and kids. Tell us again, I know your husband is a songwriter and musician, but tell us a little bit more about B. Sterling Archer.
Sure. My husband is an accomplished musician. He teaches orchestra at a classical Christian school in Austin called Regents School of Austin.
Okay.
Teaches orchestra there, but he also tours as a folk musician. He is, he's very accomplished in many instruments, but his favorite instrument, of course, is the guitar.
Okay.
He played this summer at Kerrville Folk Festival. It's the longest running folk festival in the country.
Right.
He was one of their headliners there this summer. And he tours all over the country in the summer times. That's the beauty of a teaching job, is that all his summertime months are free. So he tours as much as he can in the summer. He travels all over the country. And plays gigs on the weekends when he can, when I'm not having him wrangle my kids for me.
Right. And in Kerrville, Texas, that used to be the home of Mooney Aircraft, and they made small single-engine Mooney aircrafts down there.
I did not even know that.
Yeah, they sure did. I've flown Moonies and was down at the factory. Now, we're talking about many, many years ago in the late 70s. And, but Kerrville, and of course, they have a Kerrville bus lines, I think. That was a charter.
Yes. It's a great festival. It's amazing.
Yeah.
My son, we went there this June, and my 5-year-old son got to get on stage with Peter Yarrow and sing Puff the Magic Dragon.
Really? That's great, though. That's great. I mean,
it was amazing. It was like, I turned to my son, I'm like, you don't know how cool this is.
That's
One day
right.
I'll tell you about this.
That's right. All right, now, your husband is obviously, but his genre of music would be widespread. I mean, obviously.
He's a folk musician, so he's very interested in acoustic songwriting, songs for guitar, and he writes everything from worship songs to just songs about life, struggles of life, and so he really prefers like an intimate setting when he plays. He does a lot of house concerts.
Yes.
When people have a concert in their home and they invite 40, 50 people. He does a wonderful house concert. He travels all over the country doing that.
Wow. And with his instrument, all the instruments, and enjoying the guitar, of course, what about your instrument?
I don't play any instruments. It's shameful. I know.
No, it's not shameful. What about your voice? You have to be able to sing. Come on.
No, I don't. Pastor Benny, it's horrible. I'll sometimes sing along to songs when we're in the car, and he says, "Oh, Jess, keep writing. You have other gifts."
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that one also. Bless your heart. But I just perceived you as a great musician.
That he and I did duets. I don't.
Okay. My wife and I don't either. So she would say the same thing. Trust me on that. We go back to your book, and what if I were to ask you, what would be the big takeaways from your book? What would you say? What would you want our people to hear?
Would be reading about someone who battled severe anxiety and has come through that. I still struggle with anxiety, but not to the degree that I did as a child. And I saw a lot of healing in my life from that. So I would say people can really relate to my struggles, the way I describe panic attacks. That's a very real and serious ailment to experience. And so I describe that, and I describe how Christ met me in that anxiety. That's a big takeaway. And then also, really, the biggest thing about my book is finding home with Christ, and what that might look like when you invite Christ in your life. I talk in the book about really discovering that I can be at peace, knowing he lives in me, no matter where I go. Like the scriptures say, he's always there. And one day I will come to him, and I will be in home in heaven with the Lord, and I will recognize that place.
Right. Do you, Jess, do a lot of speaking?
I have done some lately. I've spoken a lot at MOPS groups. It's a Mothers of Preschool group. Spoken at their groups around Austin. I have a couple of speaking engagements lined up at different churches, some women's events that I'll be speaking at, just various topics and related to my book and related to my poetry. You asked me what I'll be writing next, and the next thing I'll put out is a collection of poetry.
Okay. What type of poetry? Are we talking about something that would speak to children, young people, adults, or what are we talking about? Who would it be? Who's your audience in that?
The audience of for my poetry are moms like me who used to read poetry in college and probably haven't read any since. These days I'm writing poems about what it's like to be in this stage of life that I'm in. With small children. And that's my real hope, is that I can put poems back in the hands of young moms.
Right. Well, now, who is your favorite writer? Who is your favorite writer?
You'd have to pick a genre, but I really love Annie Dillard.
Okay.
She wrote Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. She's a naturalist, so she describes nature in such poetic terms. So I would say she's my favorite writer.
All right, and so you would take your writings after some of her writings. I'm not that familiar with her. Of course, mine would be a Robert Frost, or it would be or an Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And if you go to Baylor University in Waco, the Barrett Browning Library.
Really?
Yeah. You need to go up there, and you can go up there to the Barrett Browning Library there it's beside the Tidwell Bible Building on Baylor campus, and you can go in there and see the original handwritten "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways."
No way.
Whoa. Yes, ma'am. It's beautiful.
Wow.
And so you need to travel to Waco. You really do. Just go up there, 103 miles. And you want to go to the Elizabeth Barrett Browning Library. It's a beautiful...
I love that you said it was approximately 103 miles.
Because everything in Texas is straight. But so obviously you have the gift of writing now. You have the gift. What are we looking down the road with outside of just even poetry? What are we looking down the road?
Well, I'm writing these days for Christianity Today. I have another article that they've asked me to do this month, and I'd like to continue to keep writing articles for them. They have a wonderful women's section in their magazine now called Hermeneutics.
Okay.
Hermeneutics. And it's really articles, essays geared toward women.
Right.
So I would like to be able to keep on doing that for them. And I think there's a few novels in me that need to come out.
Sure. With the experiences you have had, but you're also having today. You've got and God has gifted y'all with two children, and watching them grow, and seeing and perceiving in them. I could just, obviously you have that gift. And would you ever think about writing a children's book?
I have thought about it. There are some little stories that. You know how you tuck your child in at night and you continue a story with them? They want to hear a story, and then you say, well, to be continued tomorrow night, mostly because you're ready to put them to bed.
Right.
That happens. So I have a few of those that my son likes me to tell, and I have jotted notes about them on my computer. So one of these days I'll get to putting it in a complete draft form and sending it off to a publisher. I'll get to that.
Oh, that's great. And I hope that you'll keep that alive, because you just by the fact that you're a mom, anybody whose husband is a musician has to have, I go back again, to say the patience of Job, because I'm sure he's gone. And when he leaves and he leaves at 7 and says, well, I'll be back about 10.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. And,
I know.
and
exactly.
And here's mom, you become mom and dad. But I'm also sure that there are times that he becomes dad and mom when you're out speaking.
That's right.
And it's a great team play. And again, how blessed you've been, seriously, with an understanding husband, understanding children, and the giftedness of God Almighty to help you and to sustain you in writing and praying and speaking and traveling. You know.
You do have to have for me, it's so important that my husband, my partner, that we share a vision.
Right.
We share a common vision. We both desire to share our gifts.
Right.
You know, with the world. He's a musician and a songwriter. I'm a writer, and we both want to encourage each other in those gifts. I don't think it would be as comfortable and easy if I was married to someone who didn't have an artistic gift.
Right.
It's a little bit more doable because we're both artists.
And two, you know, who knows? He could take some of your next poetry and put it into song.
You know, I've suggested that, but apparently I don't understand how songwriting works.
You tell him, Pastor Benny said. Who's Pastor Benny?
I'll tell him that.
But
I'll appreciate that.
It just sounds to me that you could do that. I mean, anybody, and I love all music, all genres. I do love the classics. I will tell you that. But, you know, I still believe that there's a balance, and churches in our music today. As we begin to come to a close of our time together, is there anything that you would like to say to those who are watching tonight, and maybe take about a minute or so, and you just keep looking into that camera, and that's going to put you right in the cameras here. Anything you'd like to say to our viewers tonight before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would say, if you're struggling to know where you belong and experience that sense of home, that sense of permanence, I think it's inside every person, that longing for a sense of permanence. And if you're experiencing that, then there is really, truly no greater source of peace and home than Christ. That it's simple. Our stories are all different, but the answer is very much the same. It's Christ who's home.
Bless your heart. Well, I want to thank you, Jess, for letting us come into your home, and you coming into our homes here in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and other areas where our program will be picked up. You've been a blessing to me tonight, and again, I thank you. You did email Allison your book, and I did read some of it. I didn't read all of it. But if
it's short, Pastor Benny, you got to finish it.
Well, listen, if you'll just send me an autographed copy, okay, and send it here to WGGS Television in Greenville, South Carolina. Ooh, I'll be so honored to have.
It's coming your way. I
really would. And hopefully we can have you again. And when you stay in touch with us here, when you get that next book out, because we would love to hear from you and love to read that. And just enjoy yourself in Texas. When you're driving up Interstate 35 and you're driving through Waco, if you'll just give me a big old bear claw and sick 'em bears.
I will, just for you. I'm sure I won't do it right because I didn't go to Baylor, but I'll do it for you.
Well, you could hook 'em horns, but
I can hook 'em horns. I can do that a little better.
And but anyways, I just thank you for being our guest. I thank you, and all of our folks. I know they have enjoyed you. Again, a pleasure. May God bless you. Hopefully, one day we'll meet in person, and I'll get to meet that dear husband and precious children of yours.
Thank you, Pastor Benny.
Thank you, Jess. Lord bless you. I hope that you've enjoyed the program tonight. Listen, these have been fantastic guests tonight, and I hope that you've been touched. Get out there, call, and get on that. Get on the website, Gmail, and get that book, Finding Home with the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Billy Graham. I would say, as Dante would say, or his dad would say, we'll see you next time in the air or on the air. Good night. God bless you.